was in one of our newest battleships, HMS Prince of Wales, largely responsible for the sinking of the Bismarck, that Mr. Churchill sailed to his meeting with President Roosevelt. A meeting that was to make quite certain of the sinking of Hitlerism. The First Sea Lord was with the Premier, and Admiral Sir John Tubby, commanding the home fleet, had come to see them off at a northern port. And typical weather it was, too. Out in the Atlantic, the weather improved. Sun, a fresh breeze, and a wet forecastle head as the powerful battleship throbbed her way across the Western Ocean. On a peaceful mission this time, but a mission the import of which couldn't possibly be exaggerated. Already, America was buzzing with speculation as to the President's whereabouts, while in Britain, the Premier's absence was the subject of much guessing and many rumors. Well, here in a newsreel film, one of the most historic ever taken, is the answer to many of those rumors. Mr. Churchill, with General Sir John Dill, Admiral of the Fleet Sir Dudley Pound, Air Chief Marshal Sir Wilfrid Freeman, and Mr. Hopkins trod the quarterdeck somewhere on that Atlantic Ocean which joins Great Britain and the United States. And down below, during the voyage, the Premier and the service chiefs in conference ranged the whole wide world of strategy, east and west. Fog dimmed the scene as battleship and escort steamed on near the end of the voyage to the rendezvous with American warships. The Prince of Wales has anchored. Mr. Churchill leaves to go aboard the United States cruiser Augusta, in which Mr. Roosevelt, supposed to be on a fishing trip in his yacht Potomac, has come to the appointed place. They meet, and Mr. Churchill hands the President a letter from the King. The two greatest leaders of the freedom-loving world are ready for the historic conference. The simplicity of the scene only underlines the tremendous implications of the meeting, which transcend the war itself. There's Ensign Franklin D. Roosevelt talking to a British officer. And now Mr. Roosevelt, leaving the Augusta, visits Mr. Churchill aboard the Prince of Wales. Meanwhile, of course, yet further Anglo-American cooperation was being fully established between, for instance, Lord Beaverbrook and Mr. Harriman, lease and lend expert. Between American Navy Chief Admiral Stark Admiral Pound and Admiral King commanding the American Atlantic Fleet. Between the Chief of the Imperial General Staff and General Marshall, United States Army Chief of Staff. Anglo-American aerial strategy was obviously the subject here. And Mr. Sumner Welles may have been discussing foreign or naval affairs. There were other meetings equally informal, as when the ship's cat, Whiskey, condescended to exchange a few words with the Premier. There were parcels for every member of the ship's company, gifts from President Roosevelt. 200 cigarettes, half a pound of cheese, biscuits and fruit for each man. That is something to write home about. British and American sailors were pleased to meet each other. They got along extremely well. The powerful United States Navy, undergoing a vast expansion to meet Axis threats, is obviously manned by the right type. But the most impressive scene witnessed on the deck of the Prince of Wales was the service. A service in which every man present, from Premier and President to ordinary seaman, dedicated himself anew to the securing, with God's help, of freedom for the whole world. Captain Leach, commanding Prince of Wales, read the lesson.
Dismayed. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Hymn 540.
That fine hymn, sung by some 2,000 voices, floated across the waters of the harbor.
Hot down.
Premier and President had many discussions. We all know the 8-point declaration that resulted. The 6th point, you'll remember Mr. Attlee's broadcast.
After the final destruction of Nazi tyranny, they hope to see established a peace which will afford to all nations the means of dwelling in safety within their own boundaries, and which will afford assurance that all the men in all the lands may live out their lives in freedom from fear and want.
Following such a declaration from two such men, freedom from fear and want must come. The meeting is over, the President has left, and the man who led Britain through her finest hour looks sturdily to the future. On every one of us lies the duty of implementing this declaration, this international Magna Carta, this new Charter of Freedom.